spending, savings, and borrowing. So, what is spending? I think we all know what spending is. Like, you spend money, right? Okay. So, let's see what the definition is here. It said, spending, it implies the exchange of goods and services with money. The goods could be for immediate consumption or for consumer durables. So, spending means I'm going to pay to get certain things, certain goods, certain services. So I'm making a payment, and the payment I'm making to be for an exchange of a goods such as a marker or a service such as teaching. So I need someone to teach me at home, or I need someone to teach me privately. So I have to pay for that. That is spending. I need a wristwatch. I have to buy it. That is spending. Do we understand spending here?
Yeah.
So spending means what? You are exchanging money for goods or service. Is it clear?
Yes.
So, why do we spend? These are what we call the motives for spending. The first one, okay, motive for spending. So it implies the reasons why consumers spend on goods and services. So why do we consumers have to spend? What are the reasons what we need to spend on goods and services? So let's say, to buy goods and services, since consumers don't have everything needed, it is important to pay to have them available. Because we can't have everything we need. So it's certainly we need to get some things that we don't have. Because we don't have them, we pay for them. So we are spending because of what? We don't have it. We are spending because we don't have such thing that we needed. So because we can't have everything available to us, unless when we pay. So that means we have to spend. Do we get it here?
Yeah.
So it means that we are spending to buy goods and services because those things we need to buy, we don't have them at this point in time. So the only way we can have them is to pay for them. Do you understand the first one here?
Yeah.
The second one, spend on necessities such as food, clothing, and shelter. We need to spend on the things we need, like necessities. Why do we call them necessities? That means our life depends on these things. They are our needs. Our life depends on them. Without these things, we can't live a life.
Yeah.
We need clothes, we need food, we need shelter, a place to live in. So these things are important, yes or no?
Yeah.
So because they are important, we need to spend to get them. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Also, spending on what? Spend on non-necessities such as luxury. So we might have met our needs. We might have met our needs. We might have all the needs we need, like clothing, like shelter, like food. We have them already, but there are things that we look up to. These are luxury. We want to have holiday in Bahamas. We want to get a Bugatti car. We need to spend time in Dubai and all these things. These are luxury. They are not important. Our life does not depend on them. That's why we call it luxury. We spend on these things because we have the money available. We have excess. Do we get it here? So we spend on luxury after we have met our what? Our necessities. So when you are be able to meet your necessities, then you can think about luxury.
Yeah.
You don't think about luxury before your necessities.
Yeah.
So you think as soon as you are done with your necessities, then you can think about spending on luxuries. Do we understand luxury here? You don't get it. The first one we said we spend to buy goods and services. Why do we have to buy? We have to buy because we don't have these things available. We don't have them presently with us. So and to have them available, we need to pay for them. So that's why we are spending. The second one is we need to spend on necessities. What are necessities? Things that are important for our life. Things that we need daily. Things that we can't live without.
Yeah.
Like food, like clothing, like shelter, where to live. So when we are able to meet up these needs, these necessities, we can think ahead for luxuries. Luxuries such as holiday in Dubai, holiday in Bahamas, traveling abroad, whatever, buying a Bugatti car, using a Ferrari car. These are luxury, they are not necessities. I could get a car, not a Bugatti car. I could get a Peugeot, I could get a Kia, I could get other cars. Not necessarily what? A Bugatti car or a Ferrari or Royce. But if I'm thinking about getting a Rolls Royce, that means I'm done with using necessary cars. Because I'm done with my luxury, I'm done with my necessities. So now I'm rich and wealthy enough to buy these things. Do we understand how we spend on necessities and how we spend on luxury?
Yeah.
You can only spend on luxury when you are done with meeting with your what? Necessities.
Yes.
Do we get it? That's why we said you spend to buy goods and services, then you spend on necessities, food, clothing, and shelter. When these ones are met, then you can think about spending on luxury. Do we understand luxury here now? Now, the motive for savings now. What is savings? Savings implies setting money aside instead of spending it. So here, instead of spending, you are setting those money aside. Do you understand savings here? Savings means I'm putting certain amount of money aside. I don't want to spend it. I am not going to spend it. Now I am not spending this. So that money you put aside, instead of you spending, is what we call savings. Do you understand savings here?
Yeah.
So why do we have to save? To purchase assets at a later date. We need to buy things, we need to buy assets. You know what assets are? Things that are important for going forward, like building, like land, like machinery. These things are things that continue to have value. They appreciate. Do we understand assets here? Assets do what? Assets do appreciate. Assets do appreciate. So in time, as time goes on, they continue to add value. That's why we call them assets. Like land, like building. The price for land this year is not going to be the same price for the same land in the next 5 years. It has appreciated. It will appreciate. Do you understand assets here? So most of the time, we could save so that we can purchase an asset. So we are saving because we need to buy a building. We are saving because we need to buy a machine. We are saving because we need to buy a land. Do we understand savings here?
Yeah.
So that's the first one. 2, for precautionary motives. What are precautionary motives? Things that could happen in the nearest future that we don't know. So we might need to save now so that tomorrow, when we need that money, we can have them. Anything could happen. So you're saving because of the unforeseen circumstance that could happen that you're going to need money for. Maybe there's going to be an emergency traveling. Maybe there's going to be an health issue. Do we understand? Yeah. So you are saving for what? For an uncertainty in the future. That's precautionary motive. Yeah. Do you understand precaution here?
Yeah.
Okay. Then borrowing. So what is borrowing? It implies taking money from a person or a bank to pay back at a later date with interest. So borrowing means here, I am going to take money from you and I'm going to pay back at a later time. You're going to take money from the bank and you pay the bank at a later time. You're not going to pay presently, but you're going to take the money right now. Then you pay at a later time. But when you're going to pay back to the bank, you have to pay with what? Interest. Do we understand interest here? Interest is the amount of money you pay on what you have borrowed from the bank or what you have borrowed from the financial institution. So when you borrow a certain amount of money from the bank, you have to pay what? Interest. Do you understand borrowing here? Yeah. Okay. So why do we borrow? 1, to purchase goods which one can't afford with one's income. So we could borrow because we can't afford something. So maybe we need to buy a car, and we can't afford to pay for that car. So we could borrow money to buy the car. Do we get it here? So we are borrowing because we can't afford it at this present time, but we need it. So for the fact that we need it and we can't afford it, we borrow to buy it. Do you understand why we borrow here? Yes. The second one, leverage on low interest rates. When you leverage, that means you are seizing opportunity because there's what? A low interest rate. It means what? Leverage means here, leverage on low interest rate means that there is an opportunity for you to borrow. And what is that opportunity for you to borrow? There's what? Low interest rates. So what is low interest rates? It means the price you pay for borrowing is low. That means the price you pay at the bank for you to borrow money from the bank is less, so you can borrow more. Do we understand here? So that's why, look at what I'm talking about. What is interest rate? The amount paid by banks to customers due to savings. So when you save your money into the bank, one way or the other, you get interest from the bank because you have saved your money into the bank. Especially when you do a fixed deposit. When you have a fixed deposit, that means you keep your money in the bank, you get paid interest on it because you have saved your money in the bank. Same goes to that customer who goes to the bank to borrow. So when you go to the bank to borrow money from the bank, you pay interest on it. So that's why I said what? Or the amount paid by customers to the bank because of borrowing. So when you borrow money from the bank, when you take loans from the bank, you pay interest. So most of the time, we leverage on interest, or we leverage on borrowing because the interest rate is low. Just as if the interest rate is 2.5%, before now, and the bank says you can now borrow for 1.3%. Is it less or high? Less. So what does it mean? It means we can borrow more from the bank. Yes or no?
Yeah.
So that means we start borrowing from the bank because of what? A low interest rate. That's what it means by leverage on low interest rates. So when the interest rate is less, people will borrow more from the bank. But when the interest rate is high, people will stop borrowing from the bank. Just like if it was 2.5 and now they said it's 4.5. Will you still borrow? Will you still borrow if it increases from 2.5 to 4.5? Will you still borrow?
No.
But if it's less from 2.5 to 1.3, will you borrow more or not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we understand here?
Yes.
So when there's a low interest rate in the economy, people tend to borrow more. But when there's a high interest rate, people tend to borrow less.
Yes.
Do we understand here? So thus, when the interest rate in an economy falls, it increases borrowing, it increases borrowing. So when the interest rate falls, the borrowing will what? Increase or will rise. Do we understand here?
Yes.
We have to take note. When the interest rate increases, borrowings will less or will fall. But when the interest rate falls, the borrowing will increase. Do you understand here? Do we get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, income growth. We're talking about savings, we're talking about borrowing, we're talking about spending. All these things won't come without income. We can't talk about spending, we can't talk about borrowing, we can't talk about savings without income. What is income? The amount of money that you earn. Your earnings. What do I call it? Your earnings. These are your income, the money that comes to you because you have worked, because you are doing certain things, because you've rendered someone a service, because you have sold goods, because you have sold goods. So the money you get from these things that you do is what we call income. Do you understand income here?
Yeah.
So we have 3 levels of income in the economy. We have the low income, we have the middle income, and we have the high income. So what are the differences between these income groups? Number 1, a low income group. They spend most of their income on necessities, such as food, clothing, and shelter. They seldom save. So a low income earner does not have so much to save. He or she might not even save. So a low income earner will spend more on what? Food, clothing, and shelter. Do you understand what we're talking about here?
Yes.
A low income earner. How do you know a low income earner? You get to know a low income earner because a low income earner will spend most of his income or her income on food, on clothing, and on shelter. He or she might not be able to save. That is what? A low income group or low income earner. Do you understand the low income earner here?
Yes.
Then, middle income group. They spend most of their income on child's education. They borrow to acquire assets such as mortgage. They save little of their income. So, the middle income earners, they spend most of their income on their child's education. Do you get it? They spend most of their income on what? Child's education. So, what do they do after spending on child's education? They save little of their income. They save little. So, whenever they need assets, maybe they need to buy a house or they need to buy a land, they borrow to buy lands, they borrow to buy buildings. Do you understand? That's what we call what? Mortgage. Do you understand mortgage here?
Yeah.
That means you are borrowing to acquire a land, or you're borrowing to acquire a building.
Yes.
Do you understand the middle income earner here, or a middle income group?
Yeah.
A low income group doesn't have the ability to even get a mortgage. A low income earner cannot even save. Spend most of his or her income on what? Food, clothing, and shelter. But a middle income earner spends most of his income or her income on what? Child's education. And when he or she needs to get assets, such as land, such as building, he or she goes for what? Mortgage. Borrowing to acquire a land, borrowing to acquire a building. Do we get it? Do we understand mortgage here? So now we go to the high income group. Who are the high income group? They spend most of their income on what? Luxury. Because they are rich, they are wealthy. So they can spend on what? Luxury. Do we understand here? They save more and also what? Borrow for elephant projects, such as business expansion, contracts from government, and so on. So the high income group, what do? They spend most of their income on luxury, and whenever they need to borrow, they only borrow for projects that are elephant projects. Do we get it? Why do we call them elephant projects? Projects that are huge. They don't just borrow. They borrow when they want to expand their business. Do we understand here? So do we understand the difference between high income group, low income group, and middle income group?
Yeah.
Low income group, they don't have savings. They seldom save. They might save, but very little. It's a rare case for them to save.
Yeah.
They spend most of their income on food, clothing, and shelter. Middle income group, they spend most of their income on child's education. High income, and whenever they need to acquire assets, they go for what? Mortgage. Mortgage means borrowing to acquire a land, borrowing to acquire a building. Do we get it?
Yeah.
And lastly, high income group, they spend most of their income on what? Luxury. And they can save a lot too.
Yes.
But also when they want to borrow, they don't only borrow, they borrow for what? Elephant projects. Maybe they need to expand their business. Maybe they have contracts from government and they need to execute the contract. So these are the reasons they borrow. They don't borrow for mortgage. Do we see the difference between the three groups now?
Yeah.
Are they the same? Are the groups the same?
No.
Do we understand?
Yeah.
So these are what we call spending, saving, and borrowing. Spending means you are paying to get goods and services. Savings means you are putting money aside for a reason. And borrowing means you are taking money from the bank or from a person to pay back at a later time with interest. Is it clear?
Yes.
Do we have any question?